You already mentioned Souls of Mischief. You're recording a new album with those guys. You told in another interview that you knew Infinity '93 by heart. How was it then now to work with those guys on a new album? Was it? Can you explain how that was?
I feel really blessed to be in the position I'm in right now because this is a time where I'm meeting the icons that molded my career without knowing it. So I'm good friends with RZA, you know, to Cee-Lo, to all these people that helped inspire me to be who I wanted to be. One of the groups that were absolutely iconic to me, Souls of Mischief. So when A Plus from Souls of Mischief reached out to me to do a new album, this is on the heels of doing the Ghostface album. Ghostface I love to death, he's like a brother to me. But the kind of music I had to make for Ghostface was old Morricone Italian soundtracky horrorcore meets Wu-Tang type music. When A Plus hit me up to do an album for Souls of Mischief, it was exciting because I was presented with a new challenge. And this new challenge was to create an album that was based on the sound and feeling that I received when I first heard native tongue type music, from A Tribe Called Quest to De La Soul to Black Sheep to Souls of Mischief. But also tying that back to the source material that they used from 68 to 73, like the Bob James type samples, like the Billy Cobham, Idris Muhammad, Art Blakely, all that kind of stuff. I had a challenge to create music that was based on that journey. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was exciting for me. So being presented with the opportunity to do that, I was flattered and I accepted the challenge and we made an album.
So actually, what you said is that the J Dillas, the DJ Premiers, the RZAs, they had one journey going back to the '70s, and you had like two from going back from now to the beginning of '93 and
Absolutely.
going back. Okay.
Absolutely.
Clear. Um, the album with Ghostface.
Yes.
How did the collaboration started?
RZA started a label called Soul Temple, and one of the A&Rs from RZA's label contacted me literally on Facebook. And he said, yo, I love what you've done with Black Dynamite. I love what you did with Something About April. I feel that you should do an album with an artist from Wu-Tang. And he's like, I think it should be Ghostface. And I mean, my dream was always to work with Wu-Tang. I mean, come on, dude, you know? Especially the kind of music I create. So when I was offered that, I just went full force in, you know, and we made an album, we tore an album, and it's a piece of work that I'm very proud of, and I'm very proud of Ghostface himself, and it's something that I'm glad it was made because I feel like it did a lot just for hip hop and gave a lot of younger producers hope that they can learn how to play instruments and still make hip hop. You know what I'm saying? They can have the dream to work with someone that they grew up loving. It could happen. Like if you stick to your dreams, stick to your guns, and continue to work and persevere, you can do whatever you want to do. Working with Ghostface was always a plan for me. Knowing RZA and being able to be mentored by RZA was always a plan for me. And I always felt like something like that would happen if I worked hard, and it did happen. And now it's happening with many other artists, and it's blowing my mind. But I take the challenge.
Yeah, I read that you're gonna record an album with Snoop Dogg. Is that true?
Yes, we started recording that, and I mean, that dude's one of the most talented artists I've ever met. You know, I mean, he's so talented, and he's a pioneer, an absolute pioneer for hip-hop music, and bigger than that, just soul music in general, to the point where he could do whatever the hell he wants now.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? And whether I like the song or not that he's doing, he's always dope to me, no matter what. He's always, even if I hate the song, he's always good to me. And he's earned that right based on all the stuff he's done in pushing hip-hop at a time when people didn't even think hip-hop would survive.
You make more to speak like the East Coast style produce, in my opinion, than like DJ Premier, the
Yes,
RZA, the Jizz.
you're absolutely right.
But now you're going to record an album with one of the most famous West Coast rappers. Is there? Do you know that?
Absolutely. Look, yeah, that was a very smart question, man. Like, whenever I engage myself in the artist to make an album, I always, before we even start, I have to sit and think about what that album is supposed to be. Who is the audience? How do I make that artist better? That's my job. How do I make the vocalist better? How do I try to beat what they last did? So with me working with Snoop, I said, I want to do something that's Dr. Dre meets Curtis Mayfield meets Isaac Hayes meets today, meets Snoop today. Because my favorite album that Snoop has ever done was Doggy Style. I love everything he did on that because it was so different and innovative. And the collaboration that he had with Dr. Dre was just quintessential. So I wanted to do something that gave me the feeling I received when I first heard Doggy Style. And I wanted to do that in a way that is not copying what they did with the G-Funk, but using that idea as a foundation to do something brand new.
Simple as that. I want to go back to the album again. You recorded with Souls of Mischief. The album is called There's Only Now. Who came up with the album title?
There's Only Now is a title for the album because it's based on a story. The story is a concept. And There's Only Now is a phrase that's used to depict a certain scene within the entire story. This Souls of Mischief album, There's Only Now, is based on a real incident that happened where the Souls of Mischief life was literally threatened. They were almost all murdered. And basically, we built a story around that true incident. And There Is Only Now symbolizes a moment in the story, but it also, from a greater perspective, symbolizes the fact that there's only now, you live for now. And in the story, without me telling too much about it, it basically says to appreciate what's going on right now. You know, and it's also kind of a play against 93 Till Infinity. 93 Till Infinity, there's only now, what does it mean? The story kind of tells it.
And what's the biggest difference between 2 decades of hip hop, between '93 till now? Do you feel like hip hop is going on a higher level or another level? I don't know.
One more time.
The biggest difference between '93, Infinity '93, that period of time, the golden era of rap, as you said, and now, 2 decades of hip hop.
When 93 Till Infinity was made, that to me was made 93, and that was a point in time where hip hop was at its pinnacle to me, and it was still rising a little bit, but that period was top tier for me personally. And that was a time where if you were a hip hop producer, you had to have some kind of investment to become a producer. You had to drop a few $1,000s on an SP1200 or a MPC 60 or whatever it might be. You had to actually invest in your craft. So it was something that was taken very seriously. And not only did you have to invest in that, you had to actually buy records or have a source for records. You had to actually put time into learning these hardware, learning that hardware that was made for professionals. So there was a different level of seriousness to that music to me personally. And there was also a different passion from the burgeoning hip-hop subculture at the time. So if you put all of that together and synthesize the feeling of the times with the experimental nature of the music, also created at a time where there wasn't as much of a popular format for hip-hop. It just spawned the type of music that was made for that underground culture. Sometimes it bubbled up, but most of the time it was a little under the radar. And it was made for people under the radar. So that gave artists the freedom to do whatever the hell they wanted, because it wasn't supposed to be platinum. If it went platinum, it was great, but they weren't given those kind of budgets to make platinum albums. because there was no expectation. But it was a way for the record companies to make albums without spending too much money to make the album. So fast forward to today, where most producers are making music on their laptops. You could be an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old and make hip hop beats. You couldn't do that back then. See what I'm saying? I feel as though there's a lower level of seriousness when it comes to production. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because back then, it was a time where music, there were a little more parameters and a little more rules, even though it was very experimental when it came to the making of music, because this music during the golden era was derivative forms of some of the best soul music ever made. You see what I'm saying? So the Fugees were interpolating songs like Ready or Not by the Delphonics, which is one of the greatest soul songs to be ever made, right? Mm-hmm. But if you fast forward to modern music, they're not interpolating that kind of music. They're getting a computer-based synthesizer and playing a note or two and making a whole song based on that with a rolling 16 hi-hat and calling it trap. And they're following the trend, doing what everybody else is doing. It's not a derivative form of some of the greatest soul music ever made. You see what I'm saying? So the difference between 90s era hip-hop and modern hip-hop, to me, it's just to me, it's very subjective, is that a lot of today's music isn't as cultivated as the previous era. Doesn't mean there's not a lot of great music coming out right now. There's music that's coming out today in hip-hop that's just as good as that music.
Can you give an example of what's now coming up and what's similar
I
to...
love artists like Black Milk. I love what he's doing. I've always loved what he's doing. I love Kendrick Lamar. You know, I love the passion that he has in making music. I mean, but it's kind of a hard question for me to ask because I really don't listen to much modern music. If I'm presented with something and I like it, I'm obliged to say that this is the shit and I love it. You know what I'm saying? But all I do since I have a record store is just find old records that I've never heard before, and that's new music to me because that's what stimulates me more than a lot of the new music that's being made. So I'm ignorant to a lot of the new things that are made.